Jesus Christ is risen. It's the good news all the world needs to hear, and you can help deliver the message. The Lutheran Heritage Foundation is dedicated to translating and printing the good books of our Lutheran faith, so that all nations may know the love of Christ. In more than 140 languages, LHF provides Bible storybooks, small catechisms, devotion books, and more that proclaim the Easter message. Learn how you can help at lhfmissions.org.
Listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
And I'm Rachel.
It's a ham emergency!
Yeah, it's a ham-emergency.
Ham-emergency!
We're hemorrhaging over here. Dad.
It's going to be a ham-tastic episode. Oh, sweaty ham puns. Because it's an Iron Ladle challenge like none other. We're hamming it up.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. We're talking about, well, I'm not going to spoil it. Erin, what are we doing?
Well, I think it's clear. We're talking about ham, but specifically, we're talking about that special time of year that usually comes around Easter when suddenly... Not everyone, but many people find themselves with an excess of ham and a desire to use it up in new and creative ways. And so here we are. We're discussing ham today.
I love it so much.
I have to confess, my family, my immediate family, okay, because you're going to get additional info here shortly.
Ooh.
But my immediate family, we are not really a ham family.
Yeah.
We eat it only at the holidays, basically. My dad does like ham, but my mom she's ambivalent. She's not opposed to ham. But anyway, so I don't personally have like a whole list of my favorite ways to make ham, to use ham. So as this episode approached, I thought to myself, the thing to do is to go to the experts.
Yes.
The ladies in the lounge. And so I opened the question of what can you do with all of that leftover ham? Now, my cousin, now here's the family, the other family, the rest of the family. My cousin, who is in the group, Bethany, her family loves ham. They are a ham-loving family. And as I asked for what to do with leftover ham, I didn't even see that it was her that replied, and I knew it was her that replied. She said, leftover ham? What's that? She never has leftover ham because they eat all the ham. She is not alone. There are definitely others who also, Brittany, No, not Schlepp. Sorry, Brittany. Shelp. Plain cold ham. That's how she likes to use her leftover ham. Eat slices of it like chips, she says.
It.
I may have a problem. She and Bethany have now bonded within the group. We're bringing them together. This is excellent. Now, what I did not anticipate when I started this exploration was the murky waters that I was entering, and that is the topic of ground ham.
Yeah. What even is this?
Okay, so it turns out there is a significant subpopulation who love a lot of different recipes made with ground ham. Now, the way you make that is just what it sounds like. You take ham and you put it in a food processor or your KitchenAid meat grinder, and you grind it up into a paste.
I've never heard of this.
And then you use it in various ways. I was like, Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm familiar with a lot of things, but ground ham, when I picture ham, like you can use this to make ham salad. When I've pictured ham salad, I've either it has changed and morphed through the years, or else there are two types of ham salad out there. But
Yeah.
I pictured more of the chopped, like the fine dice sort of a ham salad.
Yeah.
Or even maybe not even such a fine dice, but still just chopped ham.
Yeah. But not shredded.
Not ground ham.
Yeah. Ham
Into a pate almost, it sounds.
ham balls are a thing.
Okay, yeah. So
I've never heard of ham
as
balls.
it went along, I started to wonder, is there a geographic thing happening here? And so
Yeah.
I did. I put a second post out there inquiring about the geographic locations of those who are familiar with ground ham and where they are from. And it turns out, I believe that the epicenter of ground ham in our country, based on this very small poll, which, I mean, it was only yesterday that I posted, not the biggest polling. However, 66 votes for Iowa.
Yeah.
And so then as I look around it, Nebraska also pretty significant. Wisconsin, Minnesota has some. Missouri also is included. So it seems to be particularly those states that surround Iowa, not Ohio, Iowa,
Yeah.
that are the lovers of ham, the ground ham. And I have to think that perhaps those that are further out, maybe they've got roots in Iowa that they don't even realize.
Yeah.
That's
This is
my
not
thesis.
This is not like
my hypothesis.
pan Midwestern, because
No,
definitely
it
not
isn't.
Michigan. At least where I grew up in Michigan, not Michigan Lutheranism
Yeah.
or
No.
Michigan Midwest culture.
And I mean, even Missouri, like I don't think it's in the St. Louis. If it is, it's a long time ago. I've never come across ground ham, and I've lived in Missouri a lot of my life. So I suspect it might even be primarily up more in the Kansas City and northern Missouri area.
Oh, yeah,
Again, the part that's close to Iowa.
yeah.
This is my theory, my hypothesis. But yeah, so ground ham, it caused a lot of strong views. We haven't had this strong views, I feel like, since we did the Battle of the Bars.
Yeah.
That also produced a lot of very strongly held opinions. This one, though, so for example, we have Carlene Hester, who says, she hears all about this. She's like, now I want a ham salad sandwich on a toasted croissant. I didn't realize how regional it was until we started moving around with the military. And I tried to find ham salad one day when I was craving it. I grew up in Iowa. Yeah. Karen Twenhoffel, pastor's kid, who was immensely blessed by living in areas where the superiority of ham salad is acknowledged. I love it. Here we are bringing in the next generation. Rachel Utterbeck. I've heard of it and enjoy it and have strong family influence from Iowa. My husband is from Wisconsin and has encountered ham salad but does not like it, so we don't have it much in our house. But now I'm thinking I'd better introduce my kids to it. So we're preserving this for the future generations. You're welcome.
Public
Utterback
service.
children, you're welcome. Barb Stallman says, I think the fake ham salad with the bologna was really good. A great way of stretching the food budget. So apparently that's even a subset of the ham salad. If it is though, it's a way to stretch the budget, which you have to appreciate those who are looking to feed their families and make something. Ham does have a lot of flavor. You put some ham in something and it can go a long way. But apparently, yeah, if you need to stretch it even further, if you don't have ham, you could go to bologna, which is already a chopped up thing, but then you could mash it further, I guess. Anyway, there is that. There also did cause, not everyone was a fan of the ham, but before we get into that, you asked about ham balls. Now, Debbie Larson was one of the first ones to do that, to say she loved ham balls. And I was like, oh, tell me more. I've got to know. So she has provided a recipe from a church cookbook, so you know it's good, of ham balls. And we'll have that picture of that church cookbook recipe there. But basically, this is ham balls and sauce from Kristen Oddie and Ann Oddie.
Wonderful.
For the ham balls, there are some surprises in here. So you need 1 pound of ground ham, 2 pounds of hamburger,
Interesting.
3/4 cup of breadcrumbs. And then here, to me, this is the surprise, but it was in a number of recipes that I saw in the course of this conversation. Also, 3/4 cup graham cracker crumbs.
Whoa! What?
I know. I don't understand it, but it was a common theme.
Huh.
So
That's very unexpected.
breadcrumbs, graham cracker crumbs, eggs, 2 eggs, a can of tomato soup, and some water. So basically, it's a meatball mixture is what it is. I mean, it's a ground meat. So you mix all of that up together, form it into balls, and then bake. Oh, you have the sauce, though, also. Tomato soup in the sauce, some more water, some brown sugar, some vinegar, and mustard. Someone else suggested, Victoria Maskey suggested a variation on the sauce made with ketchup and grape jam.
Interesting.
That sounds really good, actually.
Grape
Amazing.
jam and ketchup with the ham ball.
It
It
just keeps blowing my mind.
I know. There's a lot happening of spinning off from the ham ball, or maybe the ham ball spun off from ham loaves.
Oh.
Ann Gard shared a ham loaf recipe, which is like meatloaf, only better, she says. She usually uses equal parts ground pork and ground ham. Now, I did see in one place there was a discussion on why do we call it ground ham? Why isn't it just ground pork? Ground pork is raw pork that's been ground. Ground ham has already been cooked. So that is to make sure you're clear on whether the ingredient you're using is cooked or not. So
That would be very important.
yes. Another variation there, deviled ham.
Ooh.
I asked about that one as well. So this one is sort of spicing up the ground ham. So Faye, I did a little dance to the thing there just now. So Faye Bolton Mergups shared that she whizzes the ham in a blender, and then she adds a small amount of mayo just to bind it. Sometimes she adds pickles and onions, sometimes not. She uses it on sandwiches. She says she thinks it's from the 50s and 60s, which
That would
does
track.
sound about
Sounds
right.
right.
Could be further back, but I can totally buy the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
She also offers this informed opinion. You can buy canned devil ham, but homemade is better.
I would
think
believe that.
she's probably right. But I think this falls into the category of don't knock it till you try it.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
I think you're probably right, but it is still, I have to say, intimidating. Karen.
I'm amazed I've never heard of any of
I
this.
know.
Like there's this whole
It's a
category
whole-
of food that I've literally never
That's
come
why
across.
I was like, I'm going to have to delve into this in this episode. We're going to have to discuss
This is
because
wild.
This is new ground. Karen Pino says, we grind ours up with some cheese and onion
Oh, that
and
sounds
then
good.
put it on slices of French bread and bake it in the oven at 350 degrees, open-faced ham and cheese toasted sandwiches.
Oh, I would do that for
That
sure.
sounds very good.
So,
Yes.
yeah. Now, Esther Burns, she had this small exchange, grind it up and make ham salad sandwiches. Okay, straightforward. Pam Thompson replied, ham salad is one of the reasons I have trust issues.
Oh no.
Every once in a while, I think it is ham salad, but it is in fact bologna salad.
Oh.
To which Esther replied, bologna salad sounds amazing. So,
Trust issues. You know what? I'm going to just say I get that because oatmeal raisin cookies are one of the reasons I have trust issues.
Yeah.
Because they look like chocolate chip cookies from a distance, but they're not.
But they're not.
yes. Ham is not universally beloved, certainly not the ground ham, but even ham itself. So a member who I will render anonymous shared, my parents make ham soup with leftovers. I'm not a fan, so I don't have a recipe. Okay,
That's
that's
fair.
honest. Yeah. And Sarah Emery Hall said, if you exhaust all viable options, my dog said he is willing to offer his services related to said ham removal. So that is always a possibility. But
you want to dole out the ham in very small doses.
More. Exactly. Now, that was actually speaking of small doses, many members recommended, and this is clever. If this didn't occur to you before, absolutely. Many of them suggest when you have a lot of leftover ham, portion it out, chop it up and portion it out into like 1 cup portions and freeze it. And that way you can just take out what you need as you need it. Because often ham, you do use it just as more of an accent as opposed to like a main ingredient.
Mm-hmm.
And so definitely that is a practical usage. And indeed, you shouldn't let your dog eat a whole ham. That's a bad idea.
A lot of sodium.
That is. That's not.
I mean, a little taste though.
This dog is not going to hold on to that for long.
Oh.
Yeah.
Water bowl will be empty in about 2 minutes.
So I do have some thoughts on ways that I would use ham, but I want to hear your thoughts as well. How do you like to use ham in your houses? Are you a ham fan? What's the story?
I had to ask my mom about this because I can't eat pigs. So I have not eaten ham in a long time in my life. So I did ask my mom and she was like, we don't do leftover ham. We would just make whatever we're eating and that's it. I do remember we would buy those small little hams quite frequently, I think, growing up. And I can't entirely remember what we would eat it, but I remember eating it fairly regularly. And we had like ham lunch meat all the time. So we did eat a lot of ham. And occasionally when we got older, one of my brothers would he would be gifted one of those really nice hams or I think it was Easter or maybe it was Christmas. I don't remember, but he worked for a company that would gift their people those really nice hams. So we would eat
baked hams.
Yeah. So we ate a lot, but we really never had leftovers. And if we had leftovers, it's like, oh, take a slice and throw it on some bread for lunch. Like it wasn't really anything wild. I also asked my mother-in-law what they would do with leftovers, and she said soup. Lots of soup.
It's a true classic.
You just chop it up. The one thing in my family, it's not the actual ham, but we would use the bone in pea soup. So that was generally, if we had a ham with bone, you just leave whatever random bits are on it and just put it in the pea soup and cook it like that. I asked Luther because I was having a discussion with him and he said, freeze it and let me eat it, which is fair. He also, so I was expounding on this shredded ham that was blowing my mind. So he Googled it because he was like, I've never heard of this either. And he also does not have family in Iowa. So that explains. I cannot repeat what he said when he read about honey glazed shredded ham because it's he was so happy.
Never mind. Wrong way. I was thinking the wrong thing there.
Exactly.
No, he was like, he wanted to eat it very badly. So he's very excited about this idea of honey glazed shredded ham now, which is really funny. Now, if I could eat leftover ham, I would have a Cuban sandwich because Cuban sandwiches are my absolute favorite sandwich, hands down. Number one. Hands down.
Hands down.
If I would choose anything with ham, it would be a Cuban. So a Cuban, if you aren't familiar, is ham, Mojo roasted pork, Swiss cheese, pickles, mustard, and sometimes salami on Cuban bread. And Cuban bread is very similar to a French baguette. They're really long and round, and this hard crust with a really soft, flaky inside. So it is a specific kind of bread, but you can substitute it for with a French baguette if you don't have it. And then the Mojo pork was something that I wasn't familiar with that too. It's just Cuban style pork roast with this juice of sour oranges and garlic, oregano, cumin, olive oil, that kind of stuff. But the flavor profile is there's so many flavors and it's just so good. That would be my choice for leftover ham.
Excellent. Or either way,
and
honestly.
Pork.
Right. Right.
So good.
Yeah. No.
So good.
a Cuban is an excellent sandwich. It really is.
Yes. So that's my
Okay.
ham
Okay.
life.
So I can eat ham, and I really like ham. I can't eat very much at once because it makes my fingers and toes swell up pretty badly.
Exactly.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just so salty.
It is very
Yeah.
salty.
But I enjoy it. We are more likely to have it at Christmas than at Easter because lamb is our family Easter tradition.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
Right. We've had this
Yeah.
conversation.
We have, yeah. But I love it when they go on sale after the holidays.
Yes, that's
and then
true.
we might have ham on a random Sunday afternoon. But then there's always leftovers because nobody can eat a whole ham. And even if you could, you shouldn't. So I've never chopped it and put it in the freezer, but I will freeze slices of ham. And I love to pull those out like on a Saturday morning when we're having like eggs and just fry up individual slices of ham instead of bacon.
Oh,
that's really good. I love the ham, bone, and beans. We talked about this in our budget meals episode.
Yep.
Or even just chunks of ham, beans, pea soup, anything. And then my mother used to always make this cheesy ham and potato casserole with leftover ham that I think is still just high on the list of comfort foods for me. But for this episode, and sandwiches. I just love sandwiches.
Yes.
Especially with like mustard.
Great on
good
sandwiches.
ham.
Yeah.
Actually, like a ham from that's sliced off of a ham bone
Yeah.
is superior to lunch meat ham.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
It's superior. So when you
good.
get the chance to have that type of sandwich, you should take it.
You don't need to get a whole lot fancier. But for this episode, I wanted to do something different. And so I actually made this for dinner last night in preparation. I tried a new recipe.
Yay!
Yes.
Okay.
I made a crustless quiche. Now, I've made quiche a fair amount in the past, mostly with crust because I love pie crust. I think we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
But there's several people in my family, including my sailor husband, who are always sort of watching their figures and looking for low carb options. And so this was a recipe I found. It was super simple, super good. Like 10 minutes after prayer, both dishes were empty. And I made two different ones. One that was just ham and cheese quiche, and the other I was like, I want some veggies in here.
Of course.
So I looked in the fridge and said, what do I have? So we had one that had ham and cheese, but also onions, green peppers, and kale.
Kale, of course.
Of course. On brand. I didn't have asparagus. I would definitely, if I make this again, I'm going to make a version with asparagus because I think that would be so good.
Absolutely.
But it was a really simple recipe. So you get your pans, you grease them down, butter, oil. I used bacon grease to grease my pans.
Of course.
Because I thought that would work well, and it did.
Also on brand.
Save your bacon grease, girls.
That's right.
And then you put your add-ins. The recipe I followed and tweaked said about 2 cups of add-ins.
Okay.
So I did a cup of diced ham and a cup of cheese. I found this cool macaroni and cheese blend that was, what was it? It was cheddar, Swiss, and American all grated up together. It was really nice.
Okay.
Interesting.
So yeah, ham, cheese, and then the filling. Recipe called for 5 eggs, but I thought I'll just make that 6 because an even half dozen is much happier to my organized brain than who called for 5 eggs? Come on.
You got to use 6.
Yeah.
So I used 6 eggs, a cup of cream, a little bit of salt because the ham and cheese have a lot of salt, and a generous helping of cracked black pepper. Just whisk all those up together and pour it over your add-ins in your greased pan. Bake 350 for 35 minutes, which is really easy to remember. 350, 35. And out it comes. And then it will sort of deflate for 5 minutes after you take it out of the oven. But it was so good. It was so light and fluffy, and I really liked it. Even the veggie one was gone really quickly.
Yeah.
Now, I did cheat. I used like more than 2 cups of add-ins for that one because there was a cup of ham, a cup of cheese, and more than a cup of vegetables, lightly sauteed before they went in the pan. So I was afraid it wouldn't turn out. Turned out just fine.
Yeah.
So it was great. It was almost a total success. My youngest 2 children did not really go for it. But the other 4 of us sitting around the table more than made up for that by going back for thirds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the other 2 had chips and salsa for dinner, and I'm not proud of it, but they seemed happy.
I've done that for dinner for sure.
And I have a quote. I posted this in our discussion thread last night, and I feel like it ought to be there. While my dear husband, was taking his plate to the sink, he says, "Absolutely, 100% amazing. You are a queen." So, ladies, if you want your husbands to call you a queen, I'll put the recipe in the show notes, and you can try it yourself.
Yes. Guaranteed.
Yes.
So yes, that was how I used the ham this time, and it was pretty good. I will do it again. Too easy not to.
Yeah, definitely. So there were many people who shared ideas. Quiche, various put it in scrambled eggs, add it to cheesy potatoes, add it to pasta, lots and lots of just add-ins because ham just adds an extra boost of flavor.
Yep.
So great options. Kimberly Myers got me thinking I was already thinking this way, but she and I were thinking the same way. So her suggestion was to make Spam musubi, but with ham.
What?
So I was like, oh, I've heard of musubi. I was like, ooh, interesting. Googling now. And then she just came back and provided an excellent recipe. So I'll link to that. But basically, Spam musubi, it's a Hawaiian rice and ham dish. It looks a little bit like sushi if you've seen sushi, in that there's rice topped with something else. In this case, it's topped with ham. And then usually it's wrapped in some nori seaweed.
Oh.
And yeah, it's delicious. I say that I haven't eaten it, but
it looks delicious. I want to eat it.
Yes. So it has like the ham, then you add a little extra zing to it by caramelizing it with some soy sauce and sugar.
Ooh.
So it's going to be very tasty, but also pretty darn cheap because rice and leftover ham, that's going to go far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which then made me think about a number of other sort of outside of the box options that you might consider. So I assembled some of those. Kimbap, which is Korean seaweed rice rolls.
Ooh.
Again, similar concept where you have you lay out a sheet of the nori seaweed, which comes in sort of a square that we'll say is a little small. I don't know, maybe it's like an 8x8 square or something like that. You spread out some rice on it, and then you add some tasty items that you're going to roll up then. So ham, some pickled vegetables, maybe you could add in lots of different options as to what you could add in. But then you roll it all up and you can slice it and eat it. So it's a little bit similar to Lutheran sushi, but instead it's Korean. And so I feel like that would be an interesting way to use up some ham. Also, going a different part of Asia, because I do love Asian food. Vietnamese sandwiches, they're called banh mi. They
I've heard of those.
Are delicious. Now, there's a little bit of a French influence because French.
They were colonizers of the what was then called French Indochina.
There you go. So they kept the delicious French bread sandwich. So they still have that type of French bread that they use in a sandwich, but then they take it in a very Vietnamese direction, put some ham in there, and then also some fresh vegetables. And then there's a really delicious sort of a little bit sweet and vinegary sauce that you can either dip it in or you can sort of drizzle over it like a dressing. But very, very tasty, fresh, surprising sort of a sandwich if you haven't had that type of flavor profile before, and yet it's still clearly a sandwich with ham in it. So it's a little adventurous, but a little safe. So then I was like, oh, but what about it's spring? And so I came across a asparagus, they called for pancetta hash, but honestly, just sub pancetta is just fancy Italian ham. So instead of using that, use your leftover ham and use asparagus, which is also usually coming into season in the spring. And then a little bit of potato, saute all of that up together. It's going to be absolutely delicious.
That sounds amazing.
Angie Sharp suggested, we've had her on before as a guest. She's a missionary in Uruguay. She suggested ham empanadas. And I said, yes, I would love a recipe. She said they're only in Spanish. And I said, well, if people are motivated, Google Translate can do a lot of work these days. So I have some pictures of a recipe for empanadas, all in Spanish, but there's a few variations. One appears to be ham and cheese. One, maybe, I'm guessing there's some sort of, maybe a little bit of pepper in it. And there's a recipe for the dough as well, although you can just use like puff pastry dough if you don't want to make the dough. But let me tell you, it's not hard to make. I saw it made just last week, and it was super, super easy. So you should just make the dough. If you're gonna make empanadas, just make the dough.
Well, and that gives you all sorts of other options for like pocket breads. As soon as you said empanadas, I was like, I wonder if I could find a recipe for like a ham and cheese pasty. And you can.
I'm sure you can. Yes.
That would be good.
Now I'm thinking like runzas too.
Yeah. When I was growing up, I remembered this baked sandwich that my mom used to make. And so, as I do with these episodes, I texted my mom. I'm like, Mom, you remember that sandwich you used to make? It was a baked sandwich. It had ham in it and cheese. And then there was like a sort of a zingy dressing, and it was hot. And she was like, I don't remember it. But then she texted back, she's like, your dad remembers it. Apparently it wasn't necessarily my mom's favorite, but my dad really liked it, which no doubt is why she featured it in the rotation when I was growing up. She did not have it, but between the two of them, they identified a recipe that if you're intrigued by the idea of a baked sandwich, there is a ham and Dijon sandwich that you could try to use up some of that leftover ham. And then I'm going to just put a plug in there for, along with the whole beans. I tried so hard to find, I might have to just take a picture of my recipe, but it's got a lot of notes written. I might still have to do it though. But red beans and rice.
You've talked about this before.
I know. I love
your comfort food.
Rice. It is. It is an excellent, excellent food. And it's best made with a ham bone, so a nice meaty ham bone. Once you've used up all the ham and you're left with just the bone, you should absolutely use it in red beans and rice. But I'm really disappointed that all the recipes that I could find online, none of them referenced using a ham bone. Like some of them mentioned putting in some ham, but I was like, well, this is just lazy. This is lazy. So I'm probably just gonna have to take a picture of that recipe and put it in there you got to use a ham bone. Yeah. But ham bones, like Rachel has said before, they're made for beans. It's a wonderful thing. So split pea soup, brilliant use of a ham bone.
So good.
Red beans and rice, just a big pot of beans like Rachel made. Yeah. Also, excellent use of a ham bone.
You don't need much other flavoring if you have some savory ham to throw in.
Exactly.
It's true.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'll tell you one more thing.
Okay.
Before we wrap this up. Doing all of this research made me realize that next year for Easter, we are going to cover how to use up the leftover hard-boiled eggs.
Oh.
Because for that, I do have a special recipe that I adore. And I was like, why didn't I say we should do eggs instead of ham this time? But we were already committed. So anyway, you can look forward to that next year. We're going to talk about using up those leftover hard-boiled eggs.
There's so many.
Rachel and Sarah, you now have a year to think of what's your favorite way to use up hard-boiled eggs.
Oh, boy.
I have a little something before we go.
Yeah.
I've been typing up. This came to me while I was
yes.
driving in the car yesterday. You know how Brie used to do these like power ballads?
Yes.
Well,
You came up with a ham ballad?
it just came to me while I was driving my daughter to a friend's house yesterday, and I was like, I need a ham ballad.
Oh,
Ballad.
this
Yeah.
is the best
I love it.
ending.
Okay. Hang on, I just got to rearrange a verse.
Yes.
Okay, let's see if I can remember the tune that popped into my head. It was like it was meant to be. And if it's a complete disaster, I'll read it just as a poem, but with
Okay.
lots of emotion. All right, here we go.
Just own
This
it.
is my ham power ballad. I love you, Brienne. Ham, I'm awfully glad you're not spam. And even though I prefer lamb, I still love you a lot, yummy ham. You're a key part of Danny's Grand Slam. I could eat you by the kilogram. Will you pass some my way? Thank you, ma'am. Ham. You're my second or third favorite holiday meat. A whole lot of salty and a whole lot of sweet. I love you with mustard, with taters or beans. You make my toast swell up like cocktail weenies. Ham. You're the favorite of that Sam I am. And though you may not be all that glam, and I'm all out of rhymes, yes I am. Ham, hammy ham, yummy ham.
Oh, that was brilliant. That was a true tribute. That was a true
Wow.
tribute. Yes.
That was amazing.
Absolutely spectacular. I love it. Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know if I have any rhymes for eggs, but I've got a year to think about that.
That's
So
right. You do. You do.
Why would you do anything with eggs except deviled eggs and egg salad sandwich?
Oh, you'll find
Oh,
out.
I cannot.
You are gonna.
I gotta wait a
find
year for
out.
this.
Okay.
Yes.
All
I'm
right.
turning up the suspense.
Apparently, I need to like liven up my leftover eggs game. But this, oh my goodness, Erin, so many ideas. And ladies out in the lounge, I could not believe. I thought I had a wide range of interesting things to do with leftover ham. I was wrong.
I know.
Yeah.
There's
This
a
is-
lot.
The options are nearly endless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Although I still don't know about that deviled ham.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I know.
I'll have to try it someday and then make up my mind.
Uh-huh.
my eyes
Maybe
have been
someday
opened.
when I visit Iowa, I'll
Yes.
that would be the place to
gotta,
try it.
Gotta find the real epicenter of all this
That's right.
hamness.
Well, and I feel like it's not a coincidence
ground
that
zero.
the
Ground-
central Midwest is a ham because farm families traditionally pork and ham were like go-to meats. You wouldn't
Yeah.
slaughter your cow
Right.
to put in the freezer, but you'd raise a pig
Iowa
every
is
year.
big country,
Yeah.
right? They're a big state. I feel
Mhm.
like they're a big pig state.
Yeah.
Could be making that up. It feels
I don't
right.
know.
It does feel right.
Yeah. Boy, I learned so much in this episode. Ladies, I know there's been a lot of discussion about ham already, but we want more discussion about ham, what you do with leftover ham, if you even like ham, if you've ever heard of shredded ham. Apparently, this is a very hot topic that people.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm not even sure. Shredded, in my mind, shredded and ground are different things.
Yes.
Oh.
Mhm.
Shred.
Oh, man.
Shred implies there's still some cohesiveness.
Ground ham.
Stringiness.
Yes. Ground is it's a paste.
Man,
Mhm.
it's just so many things.
But
I can't
so
keep them
shredded
all
ham,
straight.
I'm like, okay, that does. I can get behind that paste.
So interesting.
The ham balls. Oh my goodness.
No,
Those sound so good, like meatballs with extra flavor.
One of
Yeah.
my best friends is like, yes, of course, ham balls.
Uh-huh.
They've been a thing in my life forever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did I not know this?
The secrets are all out.
Right? Man.
yeah.
Okay, anyway, comment on this
Right.
episode in the Ladies
Right.
Lounge. We want to know your thoughts about ham. This is definitely a hot topic in the Lutheran Ladies Lounge on Facebook and also on Instagram at Lutheran Ladies Lounge. We'll be posting some interesting posts after this episode drops on Instagram, so feel free to comment on those too. You can sign up for our e-newsletter in the show notes for this episode, or you can send us an email, lutheranladies@kfuo.org. You can find all of our episodes at kfuo.org/lutheranladieslounge, or on your favorite podcasting app, or on the KFUO radio app. You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
And I'm Rachel.
Views and opinions expressed on the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast may not represent the official position of the management or ownership of KFUO Radio, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. The Lutheran Ladies Lounge is produced by KFUO Radio and available at kfuo.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave a review for us too. If you love the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast, consider financially supporting our producer, KFUO Radio, so we can keep doing what we do. Find out how at kfuo.org/give. The Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast is underwritten in part by Lutheran Heritage Foundation. LHF translates, publishes, distributes, and introduces books that are Bible-based, Christ-centered, and Reformation-driven. Learn more about their global ministry and how to support their projects at lhfmissions.org.